His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, is the spiritual and temporal leader of Tibet's people and exiled government. In 1959, he dramatically escaped into exile and established the Tibetan government in northern India. The Dalai Lama has dedicated his life to the promotion of world peace. To this end, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989. Religious harmony and the preservation of Tibetan culture are also two of his main concerns. Throughout the last 50 years, he has travelled around the world, sharing his wisdom and Buddhist teachings.
Thank you.
There are few souls in history which have had such a positive influence on our world. No person alive today can rival his simple and profound message of love and compassion. His Holiness the Dalai Lama currently resides in the foothills of the Himalayas in northern India. Here, the Dalai Lama is visiting the Kyoto Monastery, which is a sanctuary of Tibetan culture and Buddhist teachings. The life of a Kyoto monk is a life of practicing loving kindness and compassion for the benefit of all. The monks do this by the practice of the tantric arts, including harmonic chanting. The Dalai Lama is highly grateful to the Indian government for granting his people refugee status.
Now, last nearly 50 years, the field where government of India can do, they extend maximum help.
The Dalai Lama's journey into exile is a triumph of the human spirit over occupation and persecutions. The lineage of the Dalai Lama spans back over 300 years. After the death of the 13th Dalai Lama, Thupten Gyatso, in 1933, the Regent Lama, seen here, and the High Lamas found a boy, Lama Damdu, they believed to be his reincarnation. Amongst many serious spiritual tests, the boy was presented with a number of identical ritual implements, only some of which belonged to the previous Dalai Lama. The boy recognized these implements, passed all the examinations, and was declared the 14th Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso. In 1940, he was taken to the Potala Palace, where he was officially installed as the spiritual leader of Tibet. At age 6, His Holiness began his monastic education and training. By 1950, Tibet was under the heavy influence of the Chinese military. At the age of 16, His Holiness was called upon to become the head of state of the Tibetan people. On the 10th of March 1959, General Chiang Chu-wu, the Chinese military commander in Lhasa, extended a seemingly innocent invitation to the Tibetan leader to attend a theatrical show by a Chinese dance troupe. When the invitation was repeated with new conditions, that no Tibetan soldiers or bodyguards were allowed to accompany His Holiness, an acute anxiety befell the Lhasa populace. Tens of thousands of Tibetans gathered around the home of the Dalai Lama at Norbuglinka Palace, determined not to let His Holiness attend the show alone. Disguised as a common Tibetan soldier, the Dalai Lama, along with a small escort, passed through the crowd and headed south to the Indian border. Within hours, the Chinese army had invaded the palace with tremendous force. Shapachoze Lobsang Tenzin Rinpoche, the former abbot of the Kyoto Monastery, recounts the horrific events that unfolded on that horrendous day.
The Chinese used disproportionate amounts of violence to put down the demonstrations. With no mercy shown, the scale of destruction and the use of force was unbelievable and unnecessary, in that it was like the sky had fallen down to earth. Such was the cruelty of occupation and invasion that it was absolutely untenable to continue living in Lhasa. We just had to think about running away to a safety without knowing where to go. Maybe it was a quirk of some divine force guiding us, somehow that we headed for southern Tibet, which proved to be a safe route to go into exile in India and seek refuge. One of the reasons for deciding to head for southern Tibet was that the territory was under the control of the Tibetan resistance group by the name of Chushi Gangdu, 4 rivers and 6 peaks, formed in 1958 by Khampa fighters to resist the Chinese. And so they kept the paths Chinese free. The territory the Khampas controlled in the southern Tibet linked almost to the Indian border, which then allowed importantly His Holiness the Dalai Lama, subsequently myself, and about 100,000 refugees to pass safely into exile into India.
Three weeks after leaving Lhasa, the Dalai Lama and his entourage reached the Indian border. From there, they were escorted by Indian guards to Bomdila. His Holiness met with the Indian Prime Minister Pandit Nehru, who had already agreed to provide asylum for the Tibetan refugees. Most of the Tibetan refugees were moved to road camps in the hills of northern India. In 1960, His Holiness the Dalai Lama took residence in Dharamsala. In 2005, the Dalai Lama opened the new Gyoto Monastery in Dharamsala. Only about 60 Gyoto monks escaped to India to be with the Dalai Lama. Today's monastic community in Dharamsala has grown to a population of over 500 monks. Thanks to the continued support of the Indian government and generous donations from Tibetan foundations around the world, the Gyoto Monastery has managed to nurture and preserve the ancient rituals and traditions of Tibet's rich history. Since being forced into exile, the Dalai Lama has been actively engaging with the global community, sharing his wisdom of Buddhist practices and seeking support for Tibet's plight. In 2008, he took to the stage of the Royal Albert Hall in London.
Not sort of going to meditate in silence. Don't worry that. Now nearly half century and remain as a homeless. And the generation change, but still our people keep Tibetan spirit from older generation to younger generation. So that's our original aim. As soon as we become refugee, I think a culture of peace, culture of compassion. Now, because of this light, this is necessary. This is not red head sect or yellow head sect or blue head sect or nothing. This is something practical. My day starts 3:30 every morning. So then at least 4 hours some meditation. One portion of my meditation is visualize those individuals who take ruthless sort of decision. So visualize these things and then take their anger, hatred, suspicion, and give them compassion, spirit of forgiveness, patience, like that. Looks silly, just imagination, no actual effect. But the practitioner's emotional level, immense benefit. But the person who carried these wrongdoing, that actually really deserve our compassion, our sense of concern, because they are wrongdoing. So from the Buddhist viewpoint, they have to face consequences. So there's more reason to feel concern about the troublemaker rather than victims.
The Dalai Lama's first commitment within his teachings is the promotion of human values. These human values include compassion, forgiveness, tolerance, contentment, and self-discipline. All human beings are the same. We all want happiness and do not want suffering. Even people who do not believe in religion recognize the importance of these human values in making their lives happier. His Holiness refers to these human values as secular ethics. He remains committed to talking about the importance of these human values and shares them with everyone he meets.
What is human value? Money? Oh yes, very important. Sometimes I jokingly used to telling the Buddhist audience, particularly Tibetan, we usually used to recite one Tibetan special sort of mantra, that is Om Mani Padme Hum. So we recite, sometimes we a little bit of hurry, then we recite Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, then Om Mani, Om Mani, Om Mani, Om Mani, Mani. So that sounds, looks like money, 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 like that. So maybe dollar money, or pound money, like that. But of course, what I think value. And of course, all these external the facilities, there's valuable things, good. But all these provide physical comfort, not mental comfort. If you have plenty of money, then some kind of satisfaction in their mental level. Oh, I have a lot of money. That is illusion, actually, because we notice among the billionaire, plenty of money, but as a person, very unhappy person, a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, a lot of suspicion, a lot of jealousy. As a person, billion money fail to bring inner peace. Billion money bring more suspicion, more uncomfortable, more worry. Anyone who truly believes if you have money, everything can solve. Everything, because of that, then you get real 100% satisfaction. That's, I think, illusion. Money can bring some friend, but that essentially friend of money, not friend of being yourself. Your fortune go like that. You become richer, richer, richer. You found more friends. When your fortune goes like that, then these friends also, I think, will disappear. Even you want to telephone, they may not answer. Isn't it? So these friends are not genuinely your friend, but a friend of your money. Isn't it? So therefore, the real friend only come out of the sense of concern or respect. Respect them, develop genuine sense of concern or compassion. Main point is that is a seed of happiness, seed of inner calmness, inner strength. More inner strength, self-confidence. Self-confidence, less fear. That automatically develops some kind of close feeling towards the rest of the human being. Compassionate attitude open our inner door. As a result, much easier to communicate with others. If too much self-centered attitude, then fear, doubt, suspicion, these come. As a result, our inner door closed. Then very difficult to communicate with others. The way to promote human value, which is basis of our inner peace, that is very important factor for happy life, including healthy body.
The Dalai Lama's second commitment is the promotion of religious harmony and understanding amongst the world's major religious traditions. Despite philosophical differences, all major world religions have the same potential to create good human beings. It is therefore important for all religious traditions to respect one another and recognize the value of each other's respective traditions. As far as one truth, one religion is concerned, this is relevant on an individual level. However, for the community at large, several truths and several religions are necessary.
Promotion of religious harmony, if you have sense of global responsibility, every human being, including non-believer, even those people who criticize religion, who anti-religion, they also human brothers and sisters. So once we develop that, then of course those people who have different religious faith, no problem. It is their right. So actually all religious tradition, all major religious tradition, you see, carry message of love and sense of brotherhood, sisterhood. So different approach. Some say there's God. God created all these things. So true sense, brothers, sisters. And some say love causality. Again, good experience come from love, respect other. Bad result come through harming other. You get negative consequences. So same aim, same meaning, different approach. Therefore, there is no obstacle to bring genuine harmony among the different religious traditions. Now here may be useful, make distinction, faith and respect. Faith towards one's own religion, respect to all religions.
The Dalai Lama's third commitment is to the Tibetan issue. His Holiness has a responsibility to act as the free spokesperson of the Tibetans in their struggle for justice. As far as his third commitment is concerned, it will cease to exist if a mutually beneficial solution is reached between the Tibetans and Chinese.
Then third commitment is regarding Tibetan problem, Tibetan struggle. The most important, Tibetan people, inside as well as outside, they very much trust me, put a lot of hope on me, so I have the moral responsibility to serve them as much as I can. Of course, my ability, my knowledge, my experience in various fields, very limited. But whatever way, it is my moral responsibility to serve them. But there will be time limit. I already something like semi-retired position, because since 2001 we already have elected political leadership. So my position something like senior advisor. Most cases, political leadership listen my view, but sometimes it doesn't. It's good. And also, is my part, some of his policy, I have some reservation, but I always remain quiet. So we are sincerely practicing democracy.
A priority for the Dalai Lama is the continuation of the lineage of knowledge for the Tibetan people. The Kyoto Monastery in Dharamsala has kept the traditions alive, along with Tibetan centres and support groups around the world.
Now new generations, I think second generation, and some cases third generations, now already there. So not only in India, but even in Canada, in America, in Switzerland, now these second generation, third generations, now they very in the spirit of being Tibetan, with Tibetan culture. I think past 50 years experience quite encouraging. And meantime, we also, establish our school.
Boys often as young as 6 years of age join the monastery.
I was 13 years old when I came to monastery, and I feel very good to come in monastery. And I came with my own self in monastery. I told my mother I want to go to become a Lama. For that I came here. I was very exciting to see Dalai Lama, and I got to see Dalai Lama from near, and I was very happy. And Dalai Lama is very big Lama, and why he is Lama? And he is like in God. Whenever he dies, and he is coming again to earth, and he's making the peace higher and higher, and he's very good for peace, and he is our Lama, very big Lama.
Then they re-established a monastic institution. And also, we established in nunnery the quality of Buddhist study, same standard of those monasteries sort of through centuries enjoy. So this is something new. Now India, now I think more than 40 years, we establish serious study in the nunnery. So now already highest Geshe degree already in the nunnery. With help of Indian government, I think among the refugee, political refugee, I think we Tibetan become most successful refugee community. So it is very good. They so far, these really doing very well.
The Dalai Lama's role as the spiritual leader of the Tibetan people has been pivotal over the past 50 years. But his role as leader of the Tibetan government in exile has been more challenging. The Dalai Lama has been generating constructive dialogue for the Tibetan quest since he petitioned the United Nations General Assembly in 1959. He won the support of countries such as Malaysia and Ireland, which insisted the UN must act on the Tibetan problem.
Be it in Tibet or anywhere else in any part of the world, must be a matter to be taken up by the United Nations.
Can it seriously be claimed that a country like Tibet, which has become almost legendary by reason of its separateness from the rest of the world, and which has all the marks of a distinct national personality, belongs essentially within the domestic jurisdiction of another country?
The General Assembly agreed to adopt 3 resolutions. These resolutions included that China would respect the human rights of Tibetans and their desire for self-determination. The United Nations resolutions were not implemented by China. Unlike his predecessors, His Holiness has held talks with many prime ministers, royal monarchs and presidents in a bid to gain support for Tibet. His life in exile has led him to more than 62 countries, covering 6 continents. In 1996, he travelled to South Africa, where he met with President Nelson Mandela.
I pray and I wish, all your hard work, can succeed. And not only benefit for people in this country, but also, I think, for humanity, I think you can be a very good example.
It has not been an easy journey. The Chinese government has a lot of influence on the global political arena and regularly pressures world leaders not to meet with the Dalai Lama.
Sorry, you said this is not a political visit, but had Gordon Brown invited you to Downing Street, would you have accepted the invitation?
No reason to refuse.
The Dalai Lama also enjoyed numerous meetings with President George Bush.
Between George Bush and me, we have, one common thing, that is the promotion of democracy.
More recently, he has presented his case to governments around the world, including the UK Foreign Affairs Select Committee.
I think the world knows we are not seeking independence. So sometimes I jokingly telling people, we both sides have some mantra or recitation. I recite one recitation, that is, we are not seeking independence, we are not seeking independence. That is my recitation. Perhaps it's 1,000 times. I think it's 1,000 times. Then the Chinese recitation is Tibet is part of China, Tibet is part of China, Tibet is part of China. That is their recitation. So just a mere recitation, not much effective. So we have to work. I feel a little uncomfortable. But I am Buddhist monk. All my conduct, what I really feel, I express. I have no interest or practice saying something and keep in mind something different. After all, solution must find between Chinese and Tibetan, no one else. So the support from Chinese people is very essential. Now already some writers, some intellectuals wrote, I think, really very objective assessment or articles. So this is really a hopeful sign.
Universal responsibility. Each of us must learn to work not just for oneself, one's own family, or one's nation, but for the benefit of all humankind. Universal responsibility is the foundation for world peace.
It seems to me many problems which we are facing, essentially man-made problem. Of course, nature disaster. These things, something different. But major portion of our problem is essentially our own creation. And meantime, nobody wants a problem. I think everyone in early morning when we get up, I think nobody hoping now this day I should have more problem, more trouble. Nobody feel that. From early morning, as soon as we wake up, I think, hope, wish some pleasant day. That's human nature. And most of these troublemakers, essentially, not necessarily intended, but you see, their way of approach is become unrealistic. That causing problem, unexpected. And unrealistic approach happen, that also not intentionally, But because of lack of perspective, comprehensive perspective, and in many cases short-sighted. So that ultimately lack of sense of global responsibility. We divide we and they and feel our interest is something independent from their interest. So taking most important our own interest and disregard others' interest. So that creates problem. In reality, our interest, others' interest is actually, I think, very much interconnected. So in the reality, we are part of the 6 billion human beings. Therefore, 6 billion human beings happy, one individual bound to be happy. If 6 billion get trouble, you cannot escape. So that's the reality. So according to that reality, our century-old concept of we and they, something independent, I think that outdated. So therefore, the idea is a sense of global responsibility, develop sense of concern of entire humanity, entire world.
Throughout his spiritual and political career, the Dalai Lama has received numerous awards and honors, including the Congressional Medal. Perhaps his most notable award is the Nobel Peace Prize. The committee recognized his efforts for the liberation of Tibet and his quest for a peaceful solution rather than using violence.
So think more about others' well-being. You get maximum benefit. So, thank you.
Throughout his travels, His Holiness has spoken to many public audiences and touched the hearts of millions around the world.
You know, he just celebrated his 70th birthday, so he won't be around forever. So, you know, these are tremendous opportunities to be in the midst of greatness.
He's the embodiment of all the Buddha's compassion. So when he comes, you experience that. And it's very important because, you know, then one feels inspired to share that same thing.
Tibet nang lola Tibet nang lola tacamburi mosi kasore ngaranzo zambulingi nang lola ta si kasore frame si mebe inzanda si te kona kamyon nangeda tena singi si kasore si zambulingi nang lola kaso kunge shukchimbo kyombazo ani ngado prepare ani si ke mi samagi ani si nangyu orwa timla kasa te buzu nangyu ore tena 이제 상마에 되네 내가 좀 가고 싶어도 아니 좀 그런 것이 부대 지자체나 때문에 면도인다 와요.
In 2009, His Holiness visited the remote Indian town of Tawan in the eastern Himalayas region bordering China. The close proximity of this visit to Tibet concerned the Chinese government greatly. The local populace practice Tibetan Buddhism and speak a tongue similar to Tibetan.
We were very skeptical whether his visit would be possible or not, because the decisions are taken at the higher authority, at the central level. The government of India takes the decision. Otherwise, we were longing to have him here at any cost.
So we all public of Tawang are very, very happy, and he's God, and we feel that God has arrived at our place, and we are very, very, very happy.
Foreigners regularly travel to Dharamsala in India to hear the Dalai Lama's teachings.
I feel some joy, sparing all away. People are very happy to see their Dalai Lama.
We are coming from Korea for almost 300 people come to take His Holiness teaching.
So traditionally, 2 weeks after the Losar date, His Holiness will give a teaching on the past lives of the Buddha. And he's been doing this for many years, even this in Tibet formerly.
It's little wonder that in these times of global conflict, that people of all cultures and religions desire to hear the wisdom of His Holiness.
Our century, whether we like it or not, become like century of bloodshed, century of war, century of violence. Now those problems which our generation started, now let's solve these, our younger generation. So hopefully now our younger generation, which belongs to this century, 21st century, I think in order to have peaceful century, the peace does not mean no longer any conflict among humanity. Conflict bound to happen. So in order to keep peace, in spite of this conflict, the only realistic method is spirit of dialogue. Respect others' right, understand their viewpoint, then in the sense of brotherhood, sisterhood, and try to solve in the spirit of reconciliation and compromise. So I often use it share with people, now let us try to create this century should be century of dialogue. Then I think the real possibility of peace. I think some inner peace, some certain kind of inner peace through practice. So here now this is one example. In order to keep inner peace, compassion really makes differences. Very important. Because self-centered sort of person, very sort of cherishing oneself, only oneself. So the reflection of that feeling, they use the word I like that. So that word, nothing wrong. But the real attitude here, just think oneself. So think only oneself, then even tiny problem appears unbearable. If your attitude, think others' well-being, that means others is infinite. So think more about others' well-being, your mind open, widened. Then your own problem appears not significant, insignificant. Same problem, same tragedy can be much different how you see it. This angle, you can see something very bad. From this angle, oh, okay. That often, you see, happen. Therefore, the compassionate attitude really widened. So one's own problem, then not much sort of seriousness. So that, I think, makes differences, our inner peace. The way to promote human value, which is basis of our inner peace, that is very important factor for happy life, including healthy body. Some scientists actually, you see, told me, anger, hatred, fear, actually eating our immune system. Compassion, increasing or strengthening our immune system. So therefore, health viewpoint and peace of mind, in both cases, warm-heartedness is key factor.
Like no other religious leader, the Dalai Lama is constantly in the media spotlight. Although English is not his first language, his joyful persona and sincere honesty has helped win the international press's support for the Tibetan movement.
Telling Okay, truth. I always describe like BBC or CNN, I do not consider as a pro-Tibetan. Pro-justice. I consider these also, I think the BBC correspondent here, I always describe BBC something very objective. Particularly, I developed this conviction during Falkland War, Falk Island.
Falklands, yeah.
The British government, then Mrs. Thatcher, is a little bit disappointed. You see, your sort of clear presentation. So something danger about British sort of Navy, isn't it? Yeah. So at that time, I developed sort of conviction. BBC, that's really objectively, you see, present. So therefore, you see, the BBC, I do not consider something like pro-Tibetan or anti-Chinese. Genuinely pro-justice. Yeah. And their report very objective. So this, you see, Chinese media very much lacking.
Jonathan Mersky.
Right. Yes. My respect. My
this is not a good way for me to make friends with other journalists.
No. The person who asked me as early as 87, if things become more violence than what I do, then I immediately answered, if violence become out of control, then my option is resign. You see, this answer recently also I repeated. So thank you. Yes, now your questions.
Now I've forgotten what I was going to
sorry.
No,
Ben Cole at Positive TV. Could you please...
Positive TV.
Positive TV,
well, what's the
yes.
meaning?
It's again. It's instead of negative TV.
Then all of them.
That just means that we're beginning to sit, that MPs are going into the chamber.
I see.
Don't worry.
Not
a fire.
Not the sign of end our meeting.
No.
Then okay. So, all fire.
No fire.
No fire.
we cannot jump here.
Too high.
Okay, so yeah.
Clearly, a press conference with His Holiness can be a humorous experience. But when the subject of China is raised, it is no laughing matter.
I'm Lipeng from China News Service. You just mentioned human rights. Do you think situation of human rights in Tibet is better or worse at the moment than previous period before 1959?
Worsened. Worsened.
It's better or worse?
Yes. Worse.
Could you give me
I
more
think that
details?
best answer, you should go to Tibet and ask. Then you get answer. If I say worse, then immediately you say, oh, Dalai Lama exaggeration.
There are some journalists who are in Beijing already to cover the Olympic Games, and some have come back and said the Chinese authorities are showing them lots of information about Tibet and taking them to Tibet heritage centers and giving them the Chinese government's view. So they're being very organized to use the opportunity, this is the claim, of having journalists in Beijing to show them the Chinese authorities' view.
That's not unusual. Now, last 50, 60 years, always go like that way. Even during Cultural Revolution, the all Chinese media, full praise about Cultural Revolution. So then later, you see, political situation change, leadership change, then full criticism about Cultural Revolution, like that.
The Dalai Lama shared some of his insights regarding the struggles of dealing with the Chinese government at the Royal Albert Hall.
One Tibetan monk I know very well before 1959. He spent 18 years in Chinese Gulag. So this monk then used to join the Dharamsala. One day we casual talk. And then he told me, during 18 years in Chinese Gulag, he faced few occasions some danger. Then I thought, danger on his life, maybe. And I asked, what kind of danger? And his answer is, danger of losing compassion towards Chinese. So that kind of sort of attitude. But recently, the Chinese government seems to pay more attention about the Tibetan problem. So, and also I think because of the worldwide sort of clear signal about your concern, I think that this definitely impacts in the leaders of Chinese government. So please continue your sort of expression of solidarity, expression of your concern, really helpful. And then wherever you find sort of opportunity, talk with Chinese brothers, sisters, then talk, educate. Because some of the Chinese, they have no fuller information about the reality. So sometimes they really got the feeling we Tibetans are anti-Chinese. This is absolutely not.
Before the Dalai Lama dies, by tradition, he will inform the monks of his new reincarnation, and they will seek the child Lama. But Tibetans fear China will dictate who is the successor to His Holiness as a way of extending their control over Tibet. This was demonstrated by China's removal of the Tibetan Panchen Lama and installing their own. The Karmapa is touted by many as a possibility to fill the vacuum left by the 14th Dalai Lama. At the age of 14, Karmapa made a daring escape from a Tibetan monastery. He crossed the Himalayas by foot and horseback to India and now resides at the Kyoto Monastery in Dharamsala.
I definitely feel I can be the bridge between the two, the old Tibetans and the youth of today.
The Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people are considering many options to continue the lineage of the Dalai Lama. One option is appointing the 15th Dalai Lama before the 14th passes away. This is a radical departure from the traditional formality. The Dalai Lama's life has been a remarkable journey. Now aged in his 70s, he remains optimistic about his people's future.
Now hopefully the Chinese leadership should use more common sense rather than emotion. Then I think the future is bright. Of course, this moment we are passing through a difficult period, but this is impermanent.
His Holiness concludes each day with prayers before retiring. He often cites a favorite verse found in the writings of the renowned 18th century Buddhist scholar saint Shantidewa. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. On the eve of the Dalai Lama's talk at the Royal Albert Hall, he was asked what he would discuss.
Usual. Maybe some, I think, may feel boring. The promotion of human value or promotion of religious harmony, these two things certainly I will touch. So that's my main purpose. So more elaborate sort of explanation and also some example. So in Germany, this time, 5 days, I think at least 4 public talk. I always touch that. The meeting with media, always politics or Tibetan issue. But meeting with the public, always non-political. And these are my main interest. And also, you see, these two, my interest or my commitment till my death, I fully committed.
What makes you laugh?
What makes you laugh?
Or what makes you happy?
I think what makes laugh. If others little mistake, then I feel immediately laugh. One time in London, I think which place I can't remember. Some you see young Tibetan is perform some dance or something like that. So one child is wear shoe very big. so as soon as I saw that big shoe, one young Tibetan children, then I laugh like that. And then sometimes you see the people too much serious. One occasion in Mexico City, one interfaith service. So a few representative of different traditions, including one Japanese Buddhist representative there. So as usual, it's quite stern or very dignified. And then as usual, you see, he do rosary like that. Then somehow the string broke. So you see, the beads scattered all over, but he still remained like that. That I feel very laugh. Yes.
Sadly, I've been told I'm only allowed one more question. I'm very sorry about that. It is, would you like to be reborn in London?
What do you mean reborn?
Reincarnated.
No. I'm not born here. So reborn where? Reincarnate. Oh, possible. Englishmen, since since my childhood, we describe Englishmen as a big nose. so my next reincarnation could be one big nose. Of course, that is theoretically speaking, important is there's some usefulness. As I sort of always praying, there's so long space remain, so long sentient beings, pains or suffering remain, I will remain in order to serve. That's my favorite sort of prayer. So also I try to develop that kind of determination. So naturally, my next sort of life, wherever some usefulness there, I will born. That's sure. So if some usefulness, more usefulness here, if I born here, then naturally I will born.
Well, we'd love to have you here if you do that.
Inner peace, inner satisfaction, ultimately depend on our own mental attitude. Now, what kind of mental attitude? Firstly, we are social animal. So there must be one emotional factor which bring together as a social. social group. And then biological factor. We born from mother's womb, and after that, at that moment, we just like kasota, animal, very infant survey.
A tiny infant.
Our survival totally depend on someone else's care. Usually, our mother. If mother abandoned, I think 1 to 3 days we die. Our survival totally depend on others' care. Then furthermore, this physical survived with the nutrition of mother's milk. So not only human being, but cats, dogs, and even some other birds. Their youngsters survive entirely depend on others' care. So that's fact. So there must be some emotional factor which develop that kind of determination from mother's side. Isn't it? So mother's affection. That affection really bring determination or will to even sacrifice mother's own comfort or mother's own even life in order to protect or care. Recently, my flight, I think from Japan to America or America to Europe, one occasion, on a whole night flight, in my front seat, one couple with 2 babies. One, I think, maybe 6-7 years. Okay. The other, I think one year old. So the whole night, that younger one, not sleep, walking here and there, and shouting like that. So one occasion, I present my sweet from my pocket, and take it, and then again walk like that. The father, at the beginning, father also is taking so much care. But then after, I think around midnight, the father simply lay down on the chair. Then the mother, whole night, is taking care of that child. And I noticed the mother's eye become red. I think due to lack of sleep, something like that. So that sort of reaffirmed me, oh, mother, so kind. So that's that kind of sort of attitude, not come from religious teaching, but by nature, mainly biological factor. So, and these are, so the affection is the ultimately basis of our life. Affection is the ultimately basis of our life. Now through scientific research, one occasion, one scientist is make presentation that monkey, young monkey, some young monkey put together with mother, some separated from mother. Then those monkey with mother, always playful, very rare fighting. Those monkey, young monkey, separate from their mother, always bad mood and often quarrel. So that's same. We also same. So therefore, happy life, peaceful life, very much related with, ultimately, with affection. Then also, one occasion, there's a medical scientist, I think guinea pig or mouse, the one sort of, what called this licking. Licking is very positive effect, recover what's a wound. So all these indicates affection really makes effect on their physical status as well as mental comfort. So therefore, we can say human affection is the human basic value. The affection at the time of birth till death, I think affection or human compassion is really very, very important role. Now even so immense crisis to say, develop. Compassion really makes differences. I think, okay, no problem. My own case, recent sort of development after 10th March. 10th March afternoon, I received news from Lhasa. Now some Tibetan now moving as a demonstrations. As soon as I heard that, I developed same experience which occurred in 10th March 1959. A lot of anxiety and also fear. That same kind of sort of experience since 10th March this year. But the intelligence level, a lot of anxiety, fear, doubt, and different sort of, expectation, uncertainties, a lot of things. But underneath, I think more emotional level seems to be quite okay. So one result, usually I spend at least 8-9 hours sleep. What do you think, too much? So, fortunately, in spite intelligence level, a lot of disturbances, but never disturb my sleep. So seems to see the underneath some calmness there.
Many Londoners support rights in Tibet. What would you like them to do? What is your advice to them? And if your visit this week could change one part of the government's foreign policy, what would you like it to be?
Government foreign policy of British government?
Yes, if you could get the British government to do one thing, what would it be?
Don't know. That I don't know. That I think up to parliamentarians. House of Commons, Maria.
It's the Chinese foreign policy that needs changing,
Yes.
isn't it?
And the critics, correct. So since our approach, I prefer use the word our, because since 2001, we already have elected political leadership. My position is a semi-retired position. So I'm acting like senior advisor. So this is true. Every decision, sometimes, I understand, the elected leadership not carry my sort of advice. Sometimes different sort of the decision take place. I always welcome. So we are truly, I'm truly acting advisor, not real decision maker. So I prefer because of the explain we. Since you see our approach, not seeking independence, seeking mutually equitable solution within the framework of Constitution of People's Republic of China. So the people, I think, can educate Chinese sort of people, Chinese intellectual. Already many Chinese intellectuals now really showing genuine sort of support, genuine solidarity. So further sort of educate whenever you have the opportunity. That I think one thing you can do. And then also recently, I suggesting to the Chinese community and also Tibetan community, now time has come to set up something like Sino-Tibetan friendship group. That's, I think, very, very important. Otherwise, you see, recently I noticed to see many Chinese students, very much emotion. Inside Tibet, inside China also, it happened. Some Tibetan family who have some restaurant or some small shop, they, after this sort of crisis, many Chinese, ordinary Chinese, now they refuse to come. And naturally, you see, they got, wrong information. Seems as a government, created that kind of impression. We are anti-Chinese. And also, not only we, but the Westerns also, something like anti-Chinese. So actually not. So that I think in that field, I think the people, Londoner, I think certainly can help.
Just to come back to a previous question, is there anything special you would like the British government to do to help the situation at the present time?
Right from the beginning, I always say against make isolation China, not good. And China, very important nation, we must respect. And then meantime, there's Tibetan saying, if you are true friend, close friend, then it is important to make clear the wrong things about your friend through friendly manner, not sort of negative way, very, very positive way, as your television mentioned, very friendly manner, very, and in the meantime, I also, mentioned right from the beginning, economy is important, but human values are more important. Human issue, more important. Like human rights and also the environment issue. These are very, very important. So while you are making close relation in business field, business interest, there is no point to neglect or forget about principles. That I think very, very important.
The Dalai Lama is philosophical about China's stance on the Tibetan issue.
Their main ambition is to become superpower. In order to become superpower, you need moral authority in order to bring respect to the rest of the world. If you want to to take important role on this planet. The respect from the rest of the world is very essential. Most populated nation and ancient nation, very important. So very close relation, genuine friendship with that country is very essential. But meantime, in order to be genuine, trusted, good friend, those Chinese wrongdoing should make clear as a friend. If you carry too much appeasement and actually spoiling your friend's future. I always believe our approach, middle wave approach, is actually helping to bring stability, unity, prosperity, and ultimately bring harmonious society. So anyone, including European Union, helping that is indirectly helping to the Chinese government. Of course, some hardliner Chinese officials say too much suspicion, they get used just to bully and telling lie.
中国政府同达赖对话的大门是敞开的那么但是我们要求达赖要彻底的、真正的放弃分裂的主张，彻底的停止分裂活动，承认西藏和台湾都是中国领土不可分割的一部分，特别是在目前要停止煽动和策划在西藏和其他地区呢进行暴力犯罪的事件，停止呢干扰破坏北京奥运会的活动。
Negotiating with the powerful Chinese central government and finding a solution has been an uphill battle. This is a subject that His Holiness has been outspoken about for decades.
Chinese government made 5-point proposal, all points about me. I will get all the privileges, all the status which I have before 1959. So then I told, this is not the issue. Issue is Tibetan people's well-being, their culture, heritage, or these things.
关键在于达赖喇嘛他本人的态度，他能不能放弃他的这个藏独的立场，能不能停止他的这个破坏活动？关键是中央政府对达赖的这个政策是明确的，是一贯的，就是要放弃一个独立，承认两个，停止他的分裂活动。只要有这个东西，不光是嘴里说的，他确实这么做的，应该说谈判是有希望。
Our proposal, middle wave approach, not seeking independence, but seeking genuine autonomy. Many Tibetans inside Tibet fully agree that. So that is the mutually agreeable solution. Because the Chinese constitution provided these rights and their policy regarding minority, certain rights mentioned there. Now the problem is all these rights just remain in paper, not implemented. I feel that my direct responsibility dealing with Chinese government now find it very difficult. My trust towards Chinese government now thinner.
Save Tibet! Save Tibet!
After years of fruitless dialogue, the Tibetan issue came to global prominence in the lead-up to the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
we cannot accept the violation of human rights in Tibet, and we want to give a signal to the Chinese government that Tibet should be free, should be autonomous, and the Dalai Lama should come back to Tibet.
Western governments urge the Chinese central government to reopen dialogue with the Dalai Lama's envoys.
China needs to be open and transparent about Tibet, so far as the international community is concerned, but it also needs to engage in a positive and constructive, good faith dialogue with the Dalai Lama and his representatives.
The European Parliament had asked EU leaders to boycott the opening ceremony unless China opened talks with the Dalai Lama. EU President José Manuel Barroso had a constructive meeting in Beijing with Hu Jintao, President of the People's Republic of China.
They are ready to discuss everything except sovereignty over Tibet. And so if the concern of the Dalai Lama is, as he has always stated, the respect for cultural identity, religious identity and autonomy inside China, I believe there is real room for a dialogue. So anyway, I think everybody recognizes that this is an important step and a very important one. I'm particularly happy that this was announced today, and I'm encouraged by those positive developments. But of course, this issue is a very, very difficult one. We cannot expect, let's say, breakthroughs immediate, but I think we should encourage this kind of dialogue.
The Dalai Lama's envoy had high-level talks with the Chinese central government in the southern city of Shenzhen near Hong Kong and returned feeling optimistic.
All very candid. We had very candid discussions.
How would you describe the talks? Positive, constructive, a first step?
It's always, I think, a good first step.
But the further the Olympic torch travelled around the world, the more passionate the protesters became.
Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet! Free Tibet!
The Olympic game, right from the beginning, we fully support. So Olympic torch is part of that. The over 1 billion Chinese brothers sisters really feel proud of it. We must respect that. Therefore, we should not disturb that.
Despite the Dalai Lama's pleas for calm, the protests and demonstrations continued around the world. When the Olympic torch came closer to Tibet, tensions boiled over. Tibetans staged an anti-Chinese government protest and were met with the heavy hand of the Chinese police force.
As far as we know, at least a few hundred people killed in different parts of Tibetan area after 10th March. Now at least a few thousand arrested.
The Chinese government was unapologetic for their use of force.
这样的一个行为，到底是和平的示威还是暴力的犯罪？难道杀人、纵火、抢劫、砸毁商店、学校、银行，这是和平示威吗？难道这种行为要被容忍吗？那么，如果这样的行为被容忍的话，那么世界上还有没有法律？还有没有人权？还有没有公道？
Following the 2008 Beijing Olympics, talks between the Chinese central government and the Dalai Lama's envoy made no progress.